Howdy folks, my name is Dirk Tharp and welcome to the Carolinas Concrete Cowboy. You're in for a real treat today. We're going to watch the basics of how to stamp concrete and actually see this circular drive as it was stamped a few days ago when I filmed the crew in action. So without further ado, saddle up, let's ride. Today's Concrete Cowboy video is going to depart from our typical format in that I was wanting to actually film a crew as they stamp concrete. So there's no narration in it. You're going to notice in the background, because it was a live construction scene, there's a constant roar of a concrete mixer. It was pouring and placing concrete while these guys stamped. And you're also going to hear a bobcat running around. So the best way to make you be able to understand the pieces and fully absorb what I'm trying to teach you, today we're going to narrate, cut to a scene, narrate, cut to a scene. So whether you are a consumer wanting stamped concrete at the house and you're just curious about it, or whether you're a existing concrete finisher who would simply like to add one more tool to the services you can offer the public, there's something in this video for everyone. So one of the most fundamental ways to start in your concrete stamping is by the use of integral color. Now if you wanted, of course you can use plain gray concrete in stamping. In this case, a light buff brown was used to go with the stone and brick of the home. So what that means is when the concrete truck got here, powdered color was put into the drum and mixed, so it came out load after load this color. So the crew placed the concrete. We're not here to teach concrete placement today, so I've skipped all that in the video. It's going to pick up where they finished it down, they floated it, the bleed water's gone, and they jointed it. So all of these joints in the radius were already here. Very pretty tan color, and it was all nicely jointed and nicely edged all the way around the circle before they started stamping. So it's already like that when this scene begins. The two things I want you to learn in the beginning here are, you're going to notice, one is a 5-gallon black bucket and they reach in and they cast material. That material is known as form release. Your release agent, in this case was colored, a light gray color, gives a contrast to the base color. But its second and more important purpose is to act as a hydrophobic agent. So not to use too big a word to confuse you, what that means is it simply repels water. The powder doesn't like water. So what that means is when I got this powder on the surface, below it is the colored concrete, I can then push a stamp into the top and the stamp will not stick to the concrete. It would if we didn't have a way to be a bond breaker. And that's the purpose of the release agent. So you're going to see the guy throwing the light powder everywhere, but remember his initial base color is already in the concrete. Secondly, you're going to notice the actual tools known as stamp. The concrete stamps. Here is one pattern called a flower rock. So you can see the petals of the rock, and the way it fits together is when you're stamping, you're putting the same shape flowered stamps petal to petal to petal to petal. So everything fits together like a large jigsaw puzzle, and you're going to notice them tamping it. That's how you get the impression in. So that's enough said for our first scene. Let's watch the guys start stamping this circular drive. So how do you know when it's ready to stamp? I'll take my thumb. It just barely leaves an indentation. You're ready to stamp. now that you've seen the basic pattern happening, the repetition, it's almost like a dance across the surface of the concrete. Now we come to, well, how do we handle the edge? Obviously, there was concrete formed here running around the circle and the outside of the circle. So what do you do when you stamp over to the edge? You're going to see in the next scene how they took a stamp and actually hold it out, and sometimes you have a workmate out here helping hold it. You hold it parallel and you're going to go ahead and stamp the pattern. So here we can actually see the flower shape like this, and then the rest of it was out there over the dirt. So the guy could stamp the edge of it and not make a divot. The key is it has to be the same pressure as you did the rest of the slab. And that's how you work your way all the way around forms to keep the illusion going of your stone pattern in this case. In this scene, you've seen the stamp set up to this point. In this scene, you're going to see two more pieces. We call them skins. Skins are where you have a material that is the surface of what it is you're stamping. And they're usually, in this case, it's going to be a yellow piece and another piece, I think it was green. Well, and what you're going to see in the upcoming scene is the guys used it to stamp upon because they've already stamped. You cannot go out on something you've already stamped because you'll leave an impression of a footprint, for example. If you threw the walk board out there again, your knee board, then you're going to have a square that busts down our rock impression. So you can't go out there. So what you're going to see is the guy throw two pieces down and use them as his stepping stone to actually take a full stamp and fix something he noticed. A lot of times when you're stamping, because of all the dust up in the air, you might miss, oh gosh, I didn't stamp clearly this one piece. He notices this in his flow, stops the operation, goes out and does the repair. The skins are allowing him to get there. The second thing that you won't see in the film, but I'm explaining what skins are for as well, is if we were up against those brick steps or stone steps in the case of this house. Obviously, when I get to the ends of that, I can't take a piece of a stamp and flex it all the way up against the stair. It's just not going to work. In that case, we take our skin as well, lightly tap, and then hand tool the joints so everything matches. That way the flow doesn't stop. So now you're paying attention to what are concrete skins in addition to the stamp. When you stamp concrete, you've got to have a crew. I realize in most of this scene you're only seeing 2-3 guys, but to get it ready to stamp, there was like 7 guys out here. So in this scene, I want you to pay attention to where one of the crew falls back and is reworking the slab as the stamp guys are making their way around the circle. So what I'm showing you is this man is actually going to be taking, he's using knee boards to crawl the slab so he doesn't leave an indentation. He's reworking the hand tool joints to make them sharp again, and he's redoing the surface to make sure it's it's optimal, it's reawakened for the stamps coming. Because as you can imagine, this takes a while to work your way around the whole thing, our whole circular drive. So at least one guy is staying on the slab, reworking and keeping it awakened so it's good and fresh to receive the release agent before it gets stamped. So that's what I'm going to show you in this quick scene. As the job completes, they were pouring the adjacent plain gray slab for the driveway. And I want to show you something to always keep in mind. Joints need to connect to joints where possible. So you see where we have the radial joint coming off, the crew picked up and carried out a beautiful hand joint to create the triangle piece so it will break where they would like it to and look clean. They followed that on the other edge, and in this case of the driveway, there is a center piece because they judged it's too wide to just leave that rectangle in the center. Definitely agree with that decision. So always, the whole purpose of creating concrete art is to pay attention to details you may skip on flat, plain gray. Carry on your joints wherever possible. So whether you're a consumer thinking about doing stampcrete at your house, or you are a concrete finisher wanting to add it to your bag of services, we hope you've learned something today. But there is one thing I would be remiss not to tell you in a basic concrete stamping lesson. Today you watched a crew pour this whole circular drive in one go. When you are a beginner, you are not going to pour something this size at the first time you try. Stamping concrete is an art. It is a learned art. And the only way you can learn it is through application. In the beginning, the max you can do, and this isn't my fault, this is what I was taught in a concrete stamping school back in the early 90s. The one rule they taught that stuck with me that I've taught my students is, when you are but starting out, 7 yards is the max you want to try. I do not advise your first concrete stamping job being 7 cubic yards. I think that a front stoop, a sidewalk, a front porch, learn to crawl before you run. You're using somebody else's money. It's not fair to make a mess on their dime. The second thing is, nothing is harder than the lesson when you've made a mess and you've got to tear it out, because now it's on your dime. Because in the end, we have to make the customer happy, right? So, I know that's a lot to swallow. We're going to stop today's lesson at how to stamp. Obviously, there's another step beyond this. That'll be a different class for another day, where you wash the release agent and then seal the job, because no job's done till it's sealed. My name's Dirk Tharp. This has been the Carolinas Concrete Cowboy, and until next time, yippee-ki-yay concrete.
legal disclaimer. The views expressed by the Carolinas Concrete Cowboy, although profound, and his actions, albeit masterful, are his and his alone.
If you've enjoyed these videos, please like and subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, Carolinas Concrete Cowboy. And by all means, we look for your feedback. If you've got a session you'd like us to do or some questions you'd like answered, give me the feedback below or email me at carolinasconcretecowboy@gmail.com. Happy trails.